How long was I out? Good afternoon, my Crackertugas. I'm MBT, and this is 20 Spirit Testing. I remember the password. You all know what that means. We are doing these again. And to thank you for your patience, we'll be doing them in Clash. Presenting Pigs.
You know, Smithers, I think I'll donate $1 million to the local orphanage. When pigs fly.
That's a good one. Hey, will you be donating that $1 million now, sir?
No, I'd still prefer not.
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course the card by card. But first, if you've been compelled to casting by my videos, I've got great news for me! I've got an affiliate code in the Elestrals shop, so if you're picking up cardboard or plushies, please use that link down there. It helps the channel immensely. Now back to the video. As a preamble to today's episode, I want to talk about Clash. Clash is in closed beta until the 29th of July, which is still a ways off. As a result, it does not have every single Elestral in it. So if we want to check out a strategy playing underplayed cards, we'll still need to use the Laws client, but since they're putting in cards in order of play rate, it does have pretty much everything relevant. Okay, with that out of the way, let's peek at Pigs. Coined by Daimax, to be titled something I probably can't put in a YouTube video, and played by Gatsby in the most recent Elestrals Premier event, this is the deck that gets you. By leveraging every single good Elestral that wins the game if it wins combat a single time, the game plan here is simple. They can't always have back row. Hydrake's been topping premieres provided your name's Ari for months at this point. Nobby was the Herald of Moonrise format, and the lineup is rounded out by the newly released Sorlet, Champion of Aeolus. If this piggy connects once, it searches a Chrysor, which then hops out of the hand to hit for 2. This is the list to play if you never want to be more than a single Hurricane away from winning the game. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, we are playing the Hydrake line. That means we are on Twindra and Penterror. This is still a really hard card for decks to deal with. It's got a big butt, as well as a huge attack stat. For that reason, not a lot gets over it other than hard removal, and there's just not a lot of that left these days. 2 copies of Chrysor, Champion of Aeolus. We want to be able to do this twice, but also it's not bad to draw. That's because we're playing base set Sorlet as well. This card does not care about who enables it to get onto the field. We're playing 1 copy of Lycovoid, Champion of Artemis as a payoff to the Werepup line, 3 copies of Sorlet, because again, doesn't matter, 1 copy of Twindra, 1 copy of Doppelgator for our Nobbies, 3 Hydrake, 3 Sorlet, Champion of Aeolus, which when it destroys an Elestral in battle allows you to search your deck for an Aeolus or Champion of Aeolus and add it to your hand, including Chrysor, Nobby. We're playing 3 copies of Spectrus just as a good last Elestral. This could be Rabbit maybe, but I just really like Spectrus this format. Its utility against the Werepup Lycovoid line is, I think, good enough, and we're already in color. We are playing our 3 Werepups and then some Invoke runes. We've got Ambrosia. For counters, we've got Shield of Achilles, Gorgon's Gaze, Tsunami, and we are playing 1 copy of Hurricane. This was very shocking to me. I expected there to be 2, but I guess I was proven wrong. Finally, we are playing a couple of copies of Zeus, just because we are in Thunder for Hurricane, and this is a great way for a lot of different Elestrals to win combat, and wrapping up the lineup is the Full Moon. A quick look real fast for your ratios, and let's hop into a game. So games with this deck can go one of 2 ways, so I'm going to show you 2 replays. We're going first for game 1, and this is probably not a keep. I do like the back row, I like the Sorlet, but 2 cards we kind of want in deck is a little too much. We get a little punished on the mulligan. I don't want to mulligan twice. We do have turn 1 Werepup, which is really good on the play, kind of the #1 thing you want to see in your opener, but as you can see, we have no other back row, so we are just going to be trying to get them over and over. Now, thank goodness, this is a good position to be in with a hand like this. It means that we are going to be able to use our Werepup to get to our Lycovoid. I'm going all the way in, by the way, because I know that if my opponent has like a Spectrus, I'm probably boned either way. We need this Lycovoid to trade for 1, maybe 2 pieces of back row, and we need our opponent to make a really bad decision when it comes to casting an Elestral to get over one of the 2 Werepups, right? So casting both of them puts us a little weak to Spectrus, but it also puts us in a position where they cast something to get rid of the Werepup, and we get to retain one of the Werepups on field, which is really important if we happen to draw a Doppelgator or something. It's also important for pushing because we're already at 13 to our opponent's 20. They're going to go Galaxy. That's like a best case scenario for us. That's going to flip everything. Isn't sufficient to get out of the Lycovoid without crashing, so they are probably going to walk over a Werepup. They set 2, which is frightening. We want the Nobby to connect, and we want the Sorlet to connect, but I think it's pretty unlikely we're going to get both. We draw for turn. The #1 thing I am concerned about here is Tsunami, so I'm actually going to ascend into the Nobby by casting using a Water Spirit. That way, I think we beat everything everything when it comes to getting the Galaxy. You know, a Gorgons doesn't do it, a Shield only gets one of them, and the Tsunami, of course, doesn't prevent the Galaxy. My opponent thinks about this for a long time and then lets it resolve. We are going to activate the effect of the Nabi, bring the Galaxy down to 0. We're going to set this copy of Shield of Achilles. Good to be drawing back row here, but back row is pretty much all that's left in our list anyway, so not super shocking. We're going to go for Nabi. They're going to think here for a little while and thumb over their back row. They do have 2 of them, so they at least have some number of options when it comes to dispatching this Nabi. They let it resolve, and then we are going to cast the Nabi here using a Wind Spirit, so it's on if we want to go for a Twindra or a Sorlet Ascension next turn. They go for Tsunami afterwards to avoid taking damage off the Like Avoid, but this shows just how powerful this strategy is. We're about to dome them for a ton of damage, and there are 2 must-remove threats on our side of the field. There's almost nothing in the game that cleanly deals with both of these Elestrals. We've run away with the game, even though it's only our second turn. They're at 14 to our 11, but the remainder in terms of Spirit Differential is represented on board. Our opponent is going to expend a draw and just scoop right here. So obviously not all of your games are going to be blink and you'll miss it 30-second ordeals. We are shipping this hand back because it's got a Twindra and a Doppelgator, and we get a little punished. That did have Hurricane Nabi in it, and we threw it back. This is not a type of Elestrals that you really want to be playing, but these are what your hands are going to look like in which the game goes long. And this deck does still have the capacity to play kind of heads up, trading for quality Elestrals that you may be more familiar with if you played a lot of Base Set or Frostfall, or even some Moonrise decks played this way. Here, I don't feel like casting the Spectrus. We're not really under any sort of pressure, and Spectrus is really good as a reactive Elestral, not so much as a proactive one, so I'll wait for our opponent to do something else. If we get another Elestral so that our first Spectrus isn't threatened and our second can be played proactively, I'll probably get in, but we do find one in the Sorlet, so let's just go ahead and start deploying the Spectrus and try and get some damage in. This is answered as expected. It's a poison-tipped arrow in the back row, but that feels really good for us because it's a decent card economy. You know, it's a 1-for-1, but it's a fantastic spirit economy, right? Like, they pay 1 for the poison-tipped arrow, 1 to pay it out at the end step, and because the Spectrus doesn't go down to 0, they take a 3rd point of damage off this interaction as well. Plus, we get to have the second Spectrus and the Sorlet, both fantastic reactive Elestrals for our opponent's normal cast here. So we will pass back to our opponent and see what they get. This Eddie's going crazy, by the way. I have it on 2x. That's why he's going so nuts. I promise it looks normal in client. They're going to go for Volcaries here. Volcaries tells us a lot about what they're playing. This is a pretty Gorgonzable card. I liken it to Elichic pre-ban, just as something that is probably worth getting rid of. Of course, there is some stuff that can happen with Volcaries if they've already found a copy of Hephaestus. It's a little less good, but it's still fine because it puts them back a turn. They don't really want to cast the Hephaestus the same turn they cast a Gorgons to Volcaries because they can't use the spirits from the underworld to enchant anything. So we rip a Sorlet Champion off the top, which is incredible. While we could have deployed either the Spectres or the Sorlet here, this is much better, and it means we are going to try and go in. Seeing no poison-tipped arrow, I am going to go for the Zeus here. We're going to fire off the Zeus in order to bring down the Volcaries so that our Sorlet threatens a Chrysor, and our opponent knows this, so we are going to fish out at least one piece of back row. I'm expecting things like Tsunami, like Shield, and like Gorgon's Gaze. And unsurprisingly, we do get one. Gorgon's Gaze is probably the best possible thing we could be seeing because it doesn't deal with the Sorlet. It's still on field. We still have Zeus threatening whatever our opponent's normal cast is. That means they're going to have to like suit up this Volcaries or go wide, in which case we can totally punish them with something like a Tsunami. At present, it looks like our opponent is really thinking about this turn. They did end up having the Hephaestus after all, which is fine, but unfortunately for them, they also already have the Torch of Hestia in hand, which means they're going to want to enchant this Hephaestus once, enchant the Torch of Hestia using a Fire Spirit from the yard, and then afterwards, that Volcaries can test our Sorlet, but for the couple of back row we have, the Hephaestus can trigger with the Volcaries effect still being on in order to grab an artifact from deck just so you don't draw it. But it's a weird position to be in. I'm seeing the Lyre, and I'm immediately scared I'm going to see the Bean Soldier style Solar List. I don't know if Heliolith is in Clash yet, but it might be. It's a pretty well-played card. So Shield of Achilles here works perfect. It gets that Volcaries back in hand, and then afterwards, we can just develop our board a little further. One downside to Torch of Hestia is that I also know what I have to play around. I'm not going to pretend that the effect isn't very powerful, of course, but it does give us some information that we wouldn't already have. Tsunami is exactly where we want to be. Let's just develop this Spectrus. We're going to go ahead and set the Tsunami. Flipping the Tsunami puts us in a position to get in with the Sorlet and threaten a Chrysor. We're going to put them down to 9 and then 8. But of course, remember, Some of their spirits are represented on the Hephaestus, and because I put the full carries back in their hand, they can maybe recoup some of those losses by casting out of the yard as well. They're going to draw for turn, and we'll see what they deploy here. I'm just checking the yard real quick to see what I have to continuously play around. I do have a pretty good understanding of what the draw is, so we will play accordingly. Volcaries happens here. They're going to activate the Volcaries effect. Even if they don't have a Hephaestus in deck, you can activate this effect, is my understanding, to shuffle the deck, which can get really important in situations where you've torched into a bunch of cards you don't want to draw. Here they do have the second Hephaestus, which is pretty uncommon, but not too outside the pale. They're going to go ahead and cast the Lyre. They're going to use it with a Solar Spirit from their Spirit deck, which means no miss here. They're going to attack into the Sorlet, which has been changed to a 3/4, but a 3/4 still gets over the Volcaries if I switch it to defense. So we're going to go Tsunami and then threaten it on our opponent's next turn. And the Hurricane is huge. I'm thinking about it, and I don't think for too long. I think I am going to try it. The only thing that gets punished by is like Gorgon's Gaze on the Sorlet proactively, but even that puts us in a good position because we can eat the Volcaries and get in for 2 while they're at 6 spirits, down to 4. So I'm feeling okay despite the fact that this is the punish. We lose our back row rune as well, so it's only a 1-for-1, although we do get kind of the tempo of getting the Gorgon's Gaze out here. We're going to go for the Sorlet. Thankfully, we have played in such a way that we have a pretty decent suite of spirits remaining. We get to attack in with the Sorlet and attack in with the Spectress. I'm going to set this Zeus just to kind of bluff, I suppose. I don't think my opponent is like going to be able to Hurricane a 1, and maybe this makes them play a little more cautiously, but who knows. We're going to pass back. Unfortunately, this Lyre is kind of tough. It means we probably won't get to actually see our game plan come to fruition. And this is what I mean when I say these long games are really frustrating. You're not able to get your game plan off to the races. You have to play this like quality trading style, daybreak metagame style Elestrals, but the deck is still fine at doing that. My opponent's got, 6 cards in hand, but because they're only at 3 spirits, I still feel pretty comfortable. Anything but an Ambro, and I think we get to walk with this game. Sorlet being 5, Spectress being 5, huge deals. They're going to go Kindleo here. Now, the Kindleo is a card that we saw off of the Torch of Hestia, but there's not really profitable activation here. They can Kindleo off the Hephaestus to destroy a card, but none of these destroys feel even remotely good. Like, they can pop Champion of Aeolus and then, do nothing. They elect to pop base Sorlet and then just pass here. Like, there's not a good attack. It's kind of hard to explain. They're going to Poison Tunic the Spectress, which puts it down to 2. Kindleo gets to get in over the Spectress, dealing 2 to us, but it's still not lethal, right? Because, we take 1 off the over enchant of the Kindleo, 2 off the Poison Tunic, go to 1. Our opponent's at 0 with the Sorlet on field, and I struggle to think what that back row could be that could even matter. Even a Tsunami couldn't pull off the Lyre of Apollo. And to add insult to injury, what do we draw off the top on an Ambrosia for our last spirit? We're going to return a bunch of Wind Spirits so that theoretically the Sorlet Champion of Aeolus could trigger, but it's not going to matter. We'll just switch him to attack and get in. All right, long game, but we did walk away with it. So we're back with the deck, and I love it. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, it doesn't actually have bad cards. You'd expect a list that feels this 10-pie to play 10-pie quality stuff, but no, there's Werepup. 2, the pieces feel good to draw. If you find a Twindra or a Chrysor by accident, it's no big deal. Developing them is a piece of cake. And 3, no one is really prepared for base set Sorlet. Ol Eddie's a lot better than you might think. And the cons. 1, when this deck gets to 5 spirits, the game is already over. Being unable to cycle into a big-ass man means you're often on a list full of 4-attack Elestrals come endgame. 2, so the theory is they can't always have it, but literally every single back row stops you in some way. You're hoping to run them out of back row entirely, not specific ones. And 3, why is it on 1 Hurricane? I literally don't know. All in all, this is one of the most fun decks I've played yet. Super excited to see if it sticks.